everyone, and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who would like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you.
Hello, I'm Tom Dillon, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Helen Leathers. Good morning, Helen. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. I was just looking at my notes that I typed, and I'd got you starting, so I almost said my business partner, Tom Dillon.
That would be weird.
Yeah. Well, I got it right. Shouldn't have said anything, should I? I should have kept quiet.
You make it sound like we're really organised.
Yeah. Well, I do make notes.
We have some notes, yes.
Good. So today we're going to be talking about a topic that is becoming, I think, increasingly important to give some thought to.
Okay.
And we're going to be talking about neurodiversity.
So we know from experience that this can be quite an emotive topic.
Yeah.
And one that's difficult to talk about openly because people do have strong opinions about it. And it's an area that I think people often take to social media to disagree about.
Yes, they do. Just people feel strongly about it, don't they? As always, we're going to approach the conversation with care and curiosity and respect. And we know, because most of our listeners have come across this in terms of our training around coaching. And we know, because they've been on our courses, that a lot of them will identify as being neurodivergent. So they will know that we try to approach this with some care and curiosity. So other listeners will have family members, colleagues, or coachees with neurodivergent experiences. So, and I think when I think about our transformational coaching diploma and the success of that, I think the approach that we take in terms of just having 9 people on the course is really important when it comes to some neurodiversity. We encourage that acceptance of people being different in the way that they show up, and we get people to talk about how they are going to work together. So all of that lends itself well to people coming with different neurodivergences, and also in terms of the way that we train. So we have our workshops where people come together to discuss things and practice things, but we also have a blended approach to our learning materials. So we have text, audio, video, lots of different ways that people can engage with the material. So I think that's really important when it comes to thinking about neurodiversity.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we're training doctors as well means that they're very open and accepting of people in general. Yeah,
they will have come across people with different neurodivergences anyway when they, so that's not going to be an unusual situation for them. And will come, many of them have their own neurodivergences. Mm-hmm. Good. So at the aim of today, and when we're doing our training as well, the aim of today is to talk about neurodiversity in a way that honours the experience of individuals rather than trying to define or label them.
So interestingly there, you've said that we're talking about neurodiversity.
We are, yes.
But you're already using the term neurodivergence. So can we start the conversation by defining the meaning of those two phrases?
It's a good point. Well made. Thank you.
I do try.
So if we start with the basics, and to be honest, I don't think we'll get much beyond the basics today. I think this is an introduction to the topic. And
ever evolving, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
It's nature.
But I don't think we're going to get too far
down
the line. So neurodiversity just simply means that our human brains differ, that there is neurodiversity in the human population. So in terms of how people process information, pay attention, how they experience the world, all of that stuff, how they communicate, make sense of things. So those differences are part of the natural variation of being human. So neurodiversity is a biological fact. No two brains or nervous systems are the same. So that's definition of neurodiversity.
Okay, so neurodiversity includes every single human being, like in the same way that biodiversity describes all life on Earth. The neurodiversity describes the diversity of all human brains and nervous systems.
Yeah, so if we break the word down into 2 parts, so neuro, meaning the nervous system, brain, spinal cord, all the nerves, that sort of stuff. And diversity, obviously, variation of differences within a group.
Excellent.
So, and interestingly, it's quite a new word. So it didn't exist before 1997. or 1998. You pay your money, you take your choice. So the
Sounds like there's a story here.
yes,
Okay.
I know, it's quite interesting when you go back and look at it. So there was a lady called Judy Singer, who was an Australian sociologist, who was seen to have coined the term within a thesis she wrote.
Right.
She had her family members were autistic, and so she wrote about neurodiversity. At the same time, there was a journalist called Harvey Bloom who wrote about it in The Atlantic, used the phrase neurodiversity. And so one of those seems to have come up with, maybe they came up with it together.
Maybe.
So because they do use almost exactly the same language at the same point in time, which would be a little bit weird. So maybe one copied the other. But anyway, one of them came up with it. But what's strange is that it seems to have really annoyed people within the autistic advocacy community that there was like an academic paper written about the origins of the term to suggest that it wasn't either of those, that it was a group effort and
Okay.
that it was a community thing that came up with it. And I'm not sure why there's that contention that exists within just the coining of a phrase. But it obviously originated within that autism arena.
Okay. So we can definitely say it was the late 90s.
1997 or 1998, one of those. But it didn't really exist before that. And I think within the autistic community, then neurological diversity existed as a phrase. But they seem to have, one of those coined it. And as I just find it really fascinating that there's that degree of disagreement within a community that's all advocating for the same thing. And they just seem to have got to be in their bonnet about it.
Interesting.
And it's still on the National Autism Society website that there's this whole history behind the word.
Story.
So, yeah.
Interesting. So what do you think that people get wrong about neurodiversity?
Well, I think the main thing is that individuals can't have neurodiversity. And I think that's perhaps a phrase that does get used. So I am neurodiverse.
So people think that individuals can have neurodiversity, but actually only groups of individuals.
Only groups can be diverse.
Yes.
So anyone who diverges from the majority norms isn't neurodiverse, they're neurodivergent, which is why I used that phrase earlier on.
Okay.
Also, autism or ADHD or dyslexia aren't forms of neurodiversity. They're forms of neurodivergence.
Okay, so if neurodiversity is the fact of variation,
yes.
What's neurodivergence or being neurodivergent?
It is that difference from the majority. So someone that is perhaps neurotypical or part of the majority would not be neurodivergent. So anyone whose neurological processes work in a different way would be seen as neurodivergent. So that includes divergences that are innate, so such as autism or dyslexia, but could be as a result of a brain injury. Someone is then neurodivergent.
Okay. And then what are the common mistakes around the word neurodivergence?
I think it can quite often just be used as a euphemism for autistic. And I think, again, because these phrases originated in that autism arena, for a long time, they were just used to describe someone with autism. And I think that's definitely lessening now. So I think because of the rise in the diagnosis of ADHD seems to be engulfing the world of neurodivergence. So according to the National Autistic Society, the NAS, around 1% of the UK population has autism.
Right.
So that's around 700,000 children and adults. So that's a big number. But already that's being dwarfed by the estimate of 3.5% of the UK population having ADHD.
Okay.
So, and in the US, similar figures. So that's around 2.25 million people in the UK that have ADHD.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. So you mentioned that neurodivergence isn't just autism. It refers to a number of different divergences, including ADHD. What might be included within that umbrella term of neurodivergence?
So again, I think that the history is quite helpful here. So the term neurodivergence was coined by a lady called Cassiana Asasamas in 2001. So Cassiana used it to describe individuals whose neurological makeup, again, diverged from the neuromajority. So it was a reaction against the usage of the word neurotypical to describe someone that didn't have autism. So again, very much seeing it as okay, not everyone that doesn't have autism is neurotypical. So she was trying to make that point. Okay. So she said, someone who has epilepsy is not neurotypical, but they don't necessarily have autism.
And they don't have autism. Or
anyone with ADHD is not neurotypical. So it was a kind of a sociological point she was making. So again, it was always linked to autism from the beginning, but designed as a catch-all for, okay, this isn't... There are lots of ways of being neurodivergent, was her point.
Okay.
So it's not a diagnosis. You can't be diagnosed as being neurodivergent, but you can obviously be diagnosed with autism or ASD, ADHD, dyslexia, epilepsy. So they would all fall under that umbrella of neurodivergence. Or you might identify as being neurodivergent. So the most commonly recognized neurodivergences include autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, Tourette's, dyscalculia, that's a numbers thing, and dysgraphia, and other sensory processing differences. So there's a lot that gets covered. So anything that's not part of the neuromajority. And that's not about boxing people. It's simply acknowledging there are many ways that the brain can diverge from what we might call the neuromajority.
Or neurotypical.
Or neurotypical, yeah. And that's just the dominant way that society tends to expect people to think and learn and behave. So it's kind of almost a system thing, really. So within education, students, pupils are expected to behave in certain ways. And if they don't, then that's perhaps seen as a problem sometimes.
But certainly atypical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously there are differences in experience within those groups that are neurodivergent. So individuals with autism aren't all going to experience autism in the same way, and the same with ADHD. So that's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. There are different types of ADHD. So again, they're not going to all experience it in the same way.
Okay. So lots of different forms within each label.
Yeah, and the ADHD one is a really interesting one because historically, someone would have ADHD or ADD, so attention deficit disorder without the hyperactivity. And these days, ADHD is the blanket term that covers both, or actually covers three. So it covers the combined type of ADHD, so you're both hyperactive and have that attention deficit. And then we have predominantly inattentive type or predominantly hyperactive impulsive type. So there's three different. So, if someone says, well, I have ADHD, it's difficult to know from that label.
Which type
and how they experience ADHD. I think that's a really important thing within all of this is it's about the individual experience. And that's the important thing, especially within a coaching context. It doesn't really matter how anyone else experiences autism or ADHD. We've got an individual in front of us that experiences the world in a particular way, and useful for us to try to understand that.
So obviously in the coaching room, we're going to want to be aware of the possibility that our coachee is neurodivergent so that we understand what the best way of supporting them is.
Yeah. So it's not about memorizing a list. I think it's about appreciating that if someone lets you know that they're neurodivergent, that they're telling you something important for them and how they experience the world and what might help them to thrive or what they might be struggling with. And I think the coaching room is a perfect place, isn't it, to explore how someone experiences the world and how their particular neurodivergence shows up in their life and the way that impacts their experience of life, the world around them, and obviously in the coaching room as well, because it's going to have an impact on the coaching room.
And even without a diagnosis, we want to sit with non-judgment and we want someone to bring whatever their experience to the coaching room. So it is that perfect space where that can be explored. But let's talk briefly about language in the coaching room, because people can feel strongly about the words used around neurodiversity.
Yeah, and I think the key is to follow the client's lead.
Mm-hmm.
So some people will prefer to describe themselves as autistic, obviously if they are, or someone as a person with autism. So I think, in a very clean way, we're going to pick up on the language that they use and use their terminology. So some people might identify as neurodivergent. So that might be their offering, I am neurodivergent. Mm-hmm. And others don't use that label at all. So some people with ADHD might be very specific about the type of ADHD they have, or they might not. They might be quite vague about it. So I think our job is to create a space where they feel safe to talk about it. And I think it's useful for us to dig a little bit deeper than just accepting, well, I'm neurodivergent, because actually for a coach, it's not particularly helpful just to leave it there, is it? Because we don't know what that means. And so I think being curious about how they experience the world will tell us more about their particular experience of being neurodivergent.
So a mistake on the part of a coach could be making an assumption, making a value judgment about someone who identifies as being neurodivergent.
Yes, I think we have to stay curious, don't we? And about what we want to understand about the client. So how do they experience the world? What helps them to thrive? What needs their attention? What supports can they build into their environment?
There's some great questions to have in our heads, I think. Yeah. But how might we go about coaching someone who's neurodivergent?
So I'm conscious that this is just an introduction to neurodiversity and obviously and neurodivergence. But I think if we start to get into how do we go about doing it, we're going to be here all day. So maybe that's a good opportunity to kind of pause and not go deeper into how we go about doing it. We can have further podcasts about how we might support someone.
Yeah, and we've both got experience of coaching people with diagnosis, with self-diagnosis. So it'll be a really interesting conversation to have. So just to bring it all together, we've talked about neurodiversity and the idea that human neurological difference is something natural and that neurodiversity applies to everyone. We've talked about neurodivergence as a term that describes people whose neurological functioning works differently from what might be considered the neuromajority.
Yeah. And I think just having an awareness of both concepts and an understanding of what both of those terms mean and using them correctly is really important when it comes to coaching. And I certainly, when I listen to podcasts and all sorts of things, those phrases, neurodiversity and neurodivergence, just get mixed up and used in the wrong context. And I think that's quite unhelpful. So I've listened to a podcast recently, and it was a psychologist that was talking, a social psychologist, but she just used them interchangeably, which in a way that didn't seem to make sense. It was just as though, well, these mean the same thing, so I can just use whatever word I like. But I think it's really important to get it right. Or, we're going to get it wrong at times, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, we can try.
But I think if we're doing our best to be accepting and inclusive, then we're going to do good work.
Yeah. Thank you for that and for bringing that information that we can get more clarity on, I think. That was really useful.
I think for me it is just, and I'm sure I have been guilty of this in the past, of not quite understanding what those terms meant, which is kind of why I'm doing the podcast, really, because I think it is helpful if we get it right. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Next time on the podcast, I think we're going to be thinking about strengths.
Okay, good.
So I shall look forward to that.
I shall bring my best strengths to... it's funny, whenever I do... so I created my own strengths cards.
Yes.
Available on our website.
No, they're not. You've only got about 2 packs left.
But I'll get some more printed. So I took them out a few weeks ago and just went through the strengths side. There's strengths on one side, values on the other. But I just went through the strengths. And there's 60 cards in the pack. And I picked out about 30 that were strengths for me.
That's good.
And that's quite normal for me. I did... But I think it's quite normal for people I work with as well. They go, oh yeah, that's a strength as well. And for someone that may be struggling to identify their own strengths, I think it's really useful in the coaching room to do an exercise around strengths so that they can recognise how many strengths they actually have.
Yeah. We're allowed to blow our own trumpet and say we're good at stuff, right?
Yeah. I have 30, top 10 strengths. Maths not being one of them.
Excellent. I look forward to that. And we will see our listeners soon.
We will.
We'll
Bye
be
for
back
now.
Soon. Bye for now.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.